couple thoughts to open things up, then we'll take some questions. Coach.
Wow, what a beautiful facility. I think we're as excited as anybody to be here. Facility's great. Minneapolis is great. I like a little bit of cold weather, and yet I heard it's supposed to be real nice over the weekend. But we feel fortunate to be here, and yet we think we've earned our way to be here. And Texas Tech is we kind of clone each other in some ways, and yet I think Chris has done a great job with his team. We're both disciples, with Bob Knight and Judd Heathcote, and those two guys were best friends. Chris and I are getting to know each other, but great respect for what he's done and how he's done it, and of course for a couple of his players that are of the elite nature. And yet I'm really proud of what my team has accomplished, meaning the way we've reinvented ourselves a few times and kind of stuck to the task and found a way to get to a Final Four. No better thrill than this.
If you have a question for Coach Izzo, please raise your hand. Let's start on the right side up front with Chris from St. Paul.
Chris Thomas in St. Paul, Pioneer Press. Coach, Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins is going to be here this weekend cheering you guys on. Wondering what your relationship was with Kirk when he was at Michigan State. What's your relationship with him now? Has he ever addressed the team? And how big of a Spartan fan is he?
Oh, he's a big Spartan fan. He actually, I did talk to him 2 days ago, and hopefully he's going to come by tomorrow and talk to the team a little bit. But I had the privilege of going and playing Augusta with Kurt a couple of years ago, and there's a great relationship at Michigan State football and basketball. And to the day I die, I think his speech at the opening of college football for the Big Ten, at Big Ten Media Day, was one of the great all-time speeches I've heard. I've got it on tape, so I know Kurt pretty well. And yet I believe in him even more than I know of him. He's an unbelievable guy. And yeah, I'm excited that he's going to be here this week. He was actually at one of our games in Washington last week. And I'm sure he is. I know he's a big Michigan State fan, and I know he's a big supporter of basketball, and I appreciate that.
Front and center, Coach Adam.
Coach Adam Zagoria, I haven't seen you in a week, so I know you missed me. Jarrett Culver, what have you seen from him? Does he remind you of anybody? Does he compare to any college or NBA guys you've seen?
I've been really impressed with him. I love guys. I had a kid named Gary Harris a couple years ago who I thought was one of the best two-way players I've ever had. He could do it on the offensive end. He could do it on the defensive end. He could impact the game in both. I think Culver does that. I don't know if he's Scottie Pippen-ish like. There's probably better guys early. Just at that era, I watched even more, and I think he's got versatility, and he's a scorer that plays defense, and sometimes those are harder to come by, and that's, I think, what makes him so special.
Coach, we're going to move to the left side, just to the right of the aisle.
Mike DeFabo, Lansing State Journal. Tom, 20 years ago in 1999, you took your first team to the Final Four. I'm curious if you could think back, what stands out about that team in that season, and in what ways have they helped set the stage for what you guys have accomplished since then?
Well, they set the stage because everybody thinks we're the toughest team. Back then we could, put shoulder pads and helmets on and nobody complained, We don't get to do that anymore, but that was maybe one of the tougher teams I've ever had. This team isn't as physically tough, but they might be as mentally tough as any team I've ever had. So the word toughness is still there. With those guys, it was physical. With these guys, it's a little more mental. But the memories are still as good. I really loved that team. I appreciated that team. I had guys that would go through a wall for us, and these guys have done the same thing. I guess to be in a championship, we won the Big Ten, won the Big Ten tournament. To be anywhere in that kind of mode or being a Final Four team, you usually have to have some of those qualities of togetherness and toughness, both mental and physical. And as I use with this team a lot, this team is very connected. It's like when they move, they all move together. And that's why we've been pretty good defensively ourselves.
All the way up front on the right of the aisle, Mike.
Tom, Michael Presti, NCAA.com. This would not be your main motivation this week, but you're a Big Ten guy. How good would it be to be the team to end the Big Ten drought?
Well, it would be good because I am a Big Ten guy, you know. I mean, I love Tony Bennett, but of course I was pulling for Purdue. And I think Tony I've known for a long, long time, and his dad. But I do have great feelings for the Big Ten. Ironically, as I said, you know, Bob Knight is kind of helped mold Chris and Judd with me, and those two guys were good friends. And so there's a little flavor in it in a lot of ways. But I've been in the Big Ten for 35 years as an assistant, grad assistant, and coach. And I think our conference this year was as good as any in the country, and sometimes didn't get maybe as much credit as I think they deserve top to bottom. But if we could carry the mantle for our league and end that drought, I'd be double excited, one for Michigan State and one for the Big Ten.
On the right side to the right of the aisle.
Coach Jim Roop with Westwood One News. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Secondly, the most common word used in the locker room just a few moments ago was brothers. And you touched on it a little bit a few seconds ago. But as the coach, how does that manifest for you so that you take that brotherhood they have because they've battled through injuries and everything else, as you said, reinvented themselves a few times. How do you take that, nurture that, and create the kind of team that you have now with that intensity of brotherhood?
I think it's the culture we've created there. You know, when Magic and Mateen fly in for a game in Washington and talk to your team before, and you know, Steve Smith and Gary Harris. I mean, there's been so many guys that have been involved over the years, you know. When you work in a program, there was 19 years at Judd, and now it's been 24 years of myself and 7 years with Gus Kanakis, and we all kind of worked together. At one time, Gus worked for me, I worked for Judd. So it's like 50-some years. So we've created a culture, I think, that those former guys help the current guys know what a family is really about, what a brotherhood is really about. Then injuries and things that happen throughout a season either make you or break you. They either bring you closer together or you succumb to them and dissolve. And for some reason, this team, and I think a lot of it is Cassius, that he just was able to play with a lot of different people around him. And he truly made each one better. And that's what elite players do. They make other players better. And so I think combination of the culture, the character, the guys I got, and the quarterback that I got, you put those three things together, and, you know, I think they do believe in each other. They trust each other. They want to win for each other. It's not I want to win to get to the NBA. It's not I want to win, you know, for this or that, personal reasons. I don't need to score as many points. They are honestly happy no matter who's the star. And you can't say that about all teams.
Second row on the right side.
Tom, Charlie Walters, St. Paul Pioneer Press. Remember those scores at Augusta? What you shot and what Kirk shot?
Yeah, whenever I get over triple digits, I just kind of throw the quart away. So I don't remember, but it was a fun time. My AD, Mark Hollis, we took us, and Kirk Herbstreit went. We had a little football, basketball. We had a good time, and Kirk Cousins is a pretty good golfer too. So me, I'm just a ham and egg guy, you know, kind of slap it around a little bit and hopefully stay out of trouble. You know, when you don't hit it that far, you're never in the woods. So I was never in trouble anyway.
On the right side, just to the left of the aisle.
Hey, Tom. Joe Christensen, Star Tribune, Minneapolis. When you come here, how much does it make you think of Flip Saunders? And we were talking to Ryan Saunders the other day. He talked about having those middle-of-the-night phone conversations with you. How much did it mean to you the first time you got one from Ryan?
Wow, you know, I talked to Ryan the night we won it because, let's face it, I got to know Flip. He asked me to be an assistant with him on the Goodwill games. I'd known him a little bit at Tulsa. I tried to get him hired there. Did get him hired. I left the next day. So, and he forgave me for that. So that was a nice thing. But When Flip was at Detroit and at Washington, a couple times, I guess he lost his job, and he used to come hang out at our place, and I just love Flip Saunders. He was such a fun guy to be around, and I do miss him. I do miss the late night calls. You know, he's the guy that ordered everything off the QVC or VCQ or whatever the hell it is. But he'd stay up all night, and that's all he bought, his watches and his coats, I think. And I'd ask him where he got it, and he'd tell me. I told him he's crazy, but he would call late night, and coaches stay up late. And I miss those phone calls. But the other night, Ryan called late, and he said, my dad would be excited, and Ryan's going to be in town. They play a couple games. I'm going to try to get over and see him, and hopefully I can see Debbie while I'm here and the girls. But I miss Flip. He was great for basketball, pro and college, and I hope he's enjoying a beer up there with Judd and my father and Gus and all the other guys that are looking down upon us.
Back of the room, just to the left of the aisle, Ralph.
Tom, Ralph Russo from the Associated Press. When you have a player like Joshua who gets injured, how do you make sure he still feels like he is part of the team and how he can still contribute despite the fact that he can't play?
Well, I coined a phrase for Joshua. I did two things. I said some guys like the game, some guys love the game, and some guys live the game. Joshua's a guy that lives the game. And so I did have to keep him involved. So I put him in charge of getting our guys ready on out-of-bounds plays. We screwed up a game early, and I said, Josh, it's time for you to take over. So if you watch him on the bench, whenever there's out-of-bounds play, he's getting the guys ready. He does some of that. He's become a quiet kid that became a great leader last summer, and he still leads. And that kid has not missed 1 second of one practice the entire time he's injured. Even when he rehabs, he either does it right there in front of him or he comes in. He's a special person, both as a student, spiritually, and athletically. And we miss him, but we have kept him involved. And a lot of times I'll text him at night and say, guys are going to get a little big-headed now. Make sure you do this. Or guys are going to do this. Make sure you do that. And he's already on top of it. If you talk to Josh at all, he's going to be one of those guys that when he leaves, I'm going to be sorry that he left.
Coach, all the way up front to the left.
Charles Harwin, Minnesota Sports Recorder. How you doing, Coach?
Good, man.
You're playing in Minnesota, and Clem Haskins coached here. In fact, he coached the last team that won the Big Ten before the tournament came in. Can you just talk about his legacy into the Big Ten while you was here?
Yeah, I saw Clem. He was at our place because his son is kind of works with the Pistons, and we had an exhibition game, and I walked out, and there was Clem. And Clem and Judd and Gene, I think Clem had 2 ostriches and his farm, and he named one Judd and one Gene. I'm surprised he didn't have 2 jackasses and named one Judd and one Gene. But he too kind of taught me a lot. I learned those 3 guys, my first Big Ten meeting, it was unbelievable because those 3 guys they ruled the roost for the coaches. I was the new guy and sitting in the back of the room almost like this, hiding. And Clem, for some reason, they were all good friends with Judd, and they all kind of took me under their wing. And what I learned, they were all tough guys, but I swear to you, none tougher than Clem Haskins. His teams, those were fist fights. Not that Katie's weren't, but back then, I just learned about how hard a team played. And, when I got the job, he called me. He stayed in touch. Still, once in a while, I talk to him. That was a vintage era that I have tremendous respect for those guys. They were great coaches. They were great guys. And I miss all 3 of them in a way in the league. I really do.
Right side to the left of the aisle. Mike.
Yeah, Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News. Tom, when the year began, you knew you had a really solid situation at point guard. Did you ever imagine Cash as Big Ten Player of the Year, first team All-American? Is that something that you had in your plans when you began recruiting him and then when he joined your program?
Well, I had those in my plans when I recruited him, but no, I can't sit there and say at the beginning of the year I thought he would have the year that he's had. You know, he really improved defensively early in the year, but the way he scores the ball and the way he's efficient, you know, and it's been a little harder too. I mean, you know, his percentages have gone down a little bit, but they should. You know, people can load up on him a little differently. He had to make adjustments to that. You take a guy like Josh away, he was our leading three-point shooter. Then you take Nick away, when every time Cash threw it in there, you know, he was getting an assist on a 65% basis. And you took those two things away, and he still led the Big Ten in assists. Is just remarkable. But, you know, his demeanor is more like this, and mine's more like this. And I say that we're a good frickin' frat group, you know. We kind of balance each other out, and we wouldn't be here without Cassius Winston. There's no question about it. And I'd like to take credit that I knew that was going to happen. When I did recruit him as a freshman and sophomore in high school, I said I thought he could be the best passer, the best basketball IQ guy since Magic Johnson. I really did believe that. Told my staff that. But I didn't think he could shoot it and do those things like he did. So he's impressed me in a lot of ways, but I know he's going to get challenged on Saturday night. And once in a while when I go to bed, I think, well, yeah, they're going to do this and this and this to him. And I said, I've said that a lot of times about a lot of teams. And they did, and yet he still found a way, you know. And so he's going to have to find a way again to make 5 or 6 other guys better and still find a way to score some and do some things himself if we plan on moving on.
Third row center.
Chris Solari, Detroit Free Press. Tom, I feel like I need to ask you about your relationship with both Tubby Smith and Ron Gardenhire, but I'm going to hold off on that and ask you about Aaron Henry and kind of his ascent as a defender, first and foremost. And at what point in the season did you feel like everything started to click on that point where you could put him on opposing best players?
You know, Aaron is a very good athlete. He comes from a program that is one of the best in Indiana. They won the state. He has a high basketball IQ. And once, I think, you know, his motor had to keep going. And once he got his motor going and maybe got his chance a little more under fire once Josh went down and then Aaron got hurt too, I think he realized that he had to speed things up at a different level. And, you know, he too has a very high basketball IQ, so he understands it. And I think a couple times we put him on a guy like Brodzikas, who is a really good player, and he had some success. I think he started getting a little confidence. I'm amazed how much usually a freshman struggles defensively, and he has actually excelled defensively. And but he too is going to have his work cut out in the next couple days, that's for sure.
This will have to be the final question toward the back left of the aisle. Right in front of you.
Oh, right here.
Go up just a little bit, Olivia. Then to your right. That's it.
The other right.
Chris Fickett, the Kansas City Star. You've had coaches' sons on your teams before, Jack Hoiberg, one of them. Did you ever think you'd be coaching against his father?
No, especially when he was sitting in my office a couple of weeks ago and we were talking X's and O's, you know. I'm going to take back everything I told him. But I love Fred, not as much as I love Jack. I mean, Jack is just you know, he's a walk-on that, I mean, he is getting better and better. I love the competitiveness and who he is and his intelligence. But Fred's a great guy, too. I think Fred, you know, sitting down, one of those guys, kind of like Flip was, where he gets on the chalkboard and grease board, I should say. I'm dating myself. And he's just got options after options. I think he'll be a hell of a coach at Nebraska. I really do. With his family history is great. I think his grandfather was a coach there, and his parents went to school there. He was born there. I mean, hell, that's what you write stories about, stuff like that. And he did such a great job at Iowa State under a tough situation at Chicago hung in there, but he's been a GM or assistant GM with, I think, up here at Minnesota, right? And so he's kind of had all sides of basketball. And I think he's going to be a great addition. You know, I was a big Tim Miles fan, too. I don't mind saying that. I love Tim. And, but I think Fred will be a great addition and bring a lot to the table. And I don't know. You know, it's going to be a little harder on Jack than it is on me. But I think Fred will do well. And yet I think Jack will do well, too.
We want to thank Coach Izzo for joining us here in the main interview room. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Dr. Emmert's press conference begins in just a moment. We're going to change the